So the next part of the discussion is, that is the last chapter, metals and non-metals. If you take metals and non-metals, first of all let us speak something about metals. If we take metals, all metals, they are solids. All metals are solids. These metals when they react with oxygen, they form metal oxides, and metal oxides, when they are hydrolyzed, they give bases. All metal oxides, generally all metals if they are solids, but there are these metals, depending upon the nature, they have high melting point. They have high melting point. They show that is lustrous nature, ductility, and also malleability. So if you take lustrous nature, is that is shining nature. Example, you can take gold and silver, they are lustrous. If you take ductility, drawing into thin wires, Example, you can take, that is you can take any metal which can be drawn into thin threads. Again here gold, and you can take silver. Malleability. If you go for malleability, that is converting metals in the form of solids are converted to thin sheets. Then the last one, that is all this comes under physical properties. Sometimes these metals they also show some more properties like sonority, ability to produce sound, that is like echo sound we can produce just by hitting it on the surface. You can create some sound due to vibration of the atoms and molecules present in the metal. It can create some transverse waves or longitudinal waves within the metal surface, and it can give the type of the emission of the sound, that is propagation of waves. Then there are some exceptions in the case of metals. Exceptions, if you take mercury is a metal, but it's always called as liquid metal. Also, if you take, that is silver and copper are the best conductors. Of electricity. All metals and metal salts are good electrolytic conductors only in molten state. Example, you take sodium chloride solid, it's a good conductor only Okay, it's a good conductor only when it is in the form of sodium chloride aqueous. It's a bad conductor. Solid is a bad conductor, but it's here it's a good conductor because it is in the aqueous solution. It's a good conductor because it's in the aqueous solution. Here it is a solid, so solids, the molecules or atoms will never move, so they cannot conduct electricity because all the atoms and molecules, they are very close to each other. But in the case of aqueous solution, the salt solutions, in the presence of water molecule as a solvent, these water molecules, they go and break the lattice of the salt between the metal and non-metal, thereby they are getting converted to individual ions, cations and anions, and these cations and anions, they try to move freely in the aqueous solution. As a result, the conductivity of that solution, that salt solution, it enhances considerably, and they start allowing the electricity to pass through it, and thereby they are good conductors of electricity. Part of the discussion in this metals and non-metals. So for example, take some examples of metals. Examples of metals. If you take sodium, potassium, rubidium, magnesium, calcium, then you can take barium, okay, then you can take copper, chromium, and so on. Examples of non-metals. Examples of non-metals, you can take fluorine gas, chlorine gas, bromine liquid, then iodine solid, and so on. Actually, usually all non-metals, they are gases. All non-metals, they are gases, but sometimes the non-metals, even if you take carbon is available in the form of diamond, and carbon is also available in the form of graphite. You can take P4, phosphorus is a solid, sulfur acid is also a solid. In general, all non-metals, they are gases, but if you take exceptions, if you take bromine though it's a non-metal, it's in liquid. Bromine is a liquid non-metal. Similarly, carbon, it's a solid non-metal. Solid non-metals. In general, non-metals are poor conductors, poor electrical conductors. Non-metals are poor electrical conductors. But if you take again in this, but exception, if you take carbon graphite, because of its free electron, it's a good electrolytic conductor. Good electrolytic. It's a good electrolytic conductor. If you take carbon graphite, is a good electrolytic conductor. Again, if you take carbon diamond, it is a bad electrolytic conductor. It's a bad conductor. That's because of absence of free electron. Absence of free electron. In general, all non-metals, they are non-lustrous. All non-metals in general, they are non-lustrous, but again iodine is an exception. Iodine solid, it is exception, it's lustrous. It is lustrous, and it is hygroscopic. It is hygroscopic solid. So sometimes it can also be called as sublime solid. Sometimes it can be compared as a sublime solid. So the next part of the discussion is, that is, chemical properties of metals and non-metals. Chemical properties of metals and non-metals. Chemical properties of metals and non-metals. So if you take metals, for examples, here in the first case, metals, when they are treated with oxygen, they form metal oxides, and these metal oxides in turn, when they are treated with water, they give bases. Example, you can take plenty of examples. Example, you can take sodium solid plus oxygen gas gives rise to sodium oxide solid. Sodium oxide solid, this is a metal, and this is metal oxide. It's a metal oxide. Take this metal oxide, Na2O solid, and you take it, dissolve it in water, it forms sodium hydroxide, that is aqueous. It's an alkali or a base. It's an alkali or a base. This is metal oxide. Balance the equation. There are two sodiums here, so take 2 over here. The reaction is balanced. Here we have two sodiums, here we have 2 oxygens, here we have 1 oxygen. Take 2 here and take 4 here, and this is how you can do. This is first example. Second, you can take second, magnesium is a solid. When it is treated with oxygen gas, it forms magnesium oxide. It's a metal oxide solid. Take this magnesium oxide. When treated with water, that is liquid, is a solid, it forms magnesium hydroxide. Again, it's an alkali. It's a base. Balance the equation. I think the reaction is already balanced, but here we have 2 oxygens, and take 2 over here. Likewise, if you go for, this is reaction of metals, you can take any damn number of examples. One more example I would like to give you for metals. Sometimes you can take even D block metals like copper solid. When treated with oxygen gas, it can form cupric oxide solid. Balance the equation. Take 2 over here and take 2 over here. Again, you take cupric oxide solid, dissolve it in water, that is liquid, it forms cupric hydroxide, that is, these are bases. Sometimes what is happening is, sometimes there are few elements where they behave as both, some oxides, they can be called as amphoteric oxides. That amphoteric oxides we are going to discuss in the next part of the discussion. Metals, metal oxides, and they're giving bases. This is one part of the category. So if you go for the second part, if you go to the second part of the discussion, that is non-metals, when they are treated with oxygen, they form non-metal oxides. These non-metal oxides, when they are treated with water, they form acids. So I mean to say, all non-metal oxides, they are acidic. All non-metal oxides, they are acidic, and all metal oxides, they are basic. This is the basic information which you have to keep it in your mind. So suppose, for example, I am giving you one simple example. You can take here S plus O2 gives sulfur is a non-metal. So sulfur solid, oxygen is a gas, so it gives sulfur dioxide gas. Sulfur dioxide gas, in turn, again when it is treated with the sulfur dioxide gas, when treated with further amount of oxygen, it gives sulfur dioxide gas. Balance the equation. Take 2 over here and take 2 over here. The reaction is balanced. Now take this sulfur dioxide gas, and you dissolve it in non-metal oxide, dissolve it in water as a liquid. It gives you, that is, H2SO4 aqueous. H2SO4 aqueous. So that means this is a non-metal oxide. It's a non-metal oxide, and this is going to be the acid, oxyacid. This is non-metal. This is non-metal. Sulfur is a non-metal, and sulfur dioxide is the non-metal oxide. Non-metal oxide. So in this way we can prepare both acids as well as bases. Some more examples I would like to give you. So this is the first example in non-metals reacting with the oxygen to give non-metal oxides, and these non-metal oxides give acids. So let us take some more examples for non-metal oxides. Example 2, continuation. Examples of non-metal oxides. Non-metal oxides to give acids, continuation. So here example 2, you can take carbon solid plus oxygen gas gives rise to carbon dioxide gas, and this carbon dioxide gas, when treated with the water liquid, it gives H2CO3 aqueous, carbonic acid. One more last example I would like to give you. Example 3, that is nitrogen gas plus O2 gas gives rise to nitric oxide gas. In turn, this nitric oxide, if you take nitric oxide gas plus oxygen gas, in turn gives you nitrogen dioxide gas. So to balance the equation, take 2 over here and take 2 over here. So here nitrogen dioxide gas reacts with the nitrogen dioxide. When it is dissolved in water as a liquid, it forms HNO2 aqueous plus HNO3 aqueous. So if I balance the equation, I think if I take 2 over here, the reaction is going to get balanced. That is, here NO is nitric oxide, NO is nitric oxide, NO2 nitrogen dioxide, this is nitrogen dioxide, NO is nitrogen dioxide, and this is nitrous acid, and this is nitric acid, nitrous acid and nitric acid. So these are some of the excellent examples where we can understand the conversion of the non-metal oxides to acids and metal oxides to bases or alkalis. Now we'll go for the third part of the discussion. In the third part of the discussion, that is, let us learn something about the amphoteric oxides. Amphoteric oxide. These are the oxides. What are amphoteric oxides? Oxides which are both acidic as well as basic in nature. The best examples of amphoteric oxides, Al2O3 is amphoteric, PbO2 is amphoteric, As2O3 arsenic oxide, arsenic antimony Sb2O3 are amphoteric. So that means, for example, if I take Al2O3, yes, it can react with both acid as well as base, and this amphoteric oxide, aluminium oxide, can react with both acid as well as base, and they can give corresponding products. For example, if you take Al2O3, if it reacts with HCl acid, it gives aluminium chloride plus H2O, So here this is a solid, this is acid aqueous, and this is again a solid. So balance the equation, take 2 over here and take 6 over here and take 3 over here. Everything is balanced. So what is happening here is 1 mole of aluminium oxide solid is reacting with acid, aluminium oxide. If it is reacting with acid, it gives an acidic salt. I can call this as acidic. I can call this as acidic salt. I can call this as acidic salt. And also if I take the same Al2O3, this is acidic oxide. Right now it is behaving as acidic oxide. Acidic oxide reacts with acid to give acidic salt. Now right now it is behaving as a basic oxide. If it is a basic oxide, it has to react with the base, that is dilute base in the presence of water, liquid. It gives NaAlO2 plus H2 gas. This is solid, this is liquid, and this is a base, aqueous, and this is a solid. Aluminium oxide, basic oxide. If it is behaving as a basic oxide, it will react with a base, dilute base in the presence of water to give NaAlO2. NaAlO2 is called sodium meta-aluminate. Sodium meta-aluminate. It's a basic salt. It's a basic salt, sodium meta-aluminate, and it's a basic salt. So therefore it's very clearly understood that aluminium oxide on one side it is behaving as acidic oxide, the same aluminium oxide on the other side it is also behaving as a basic oxide. So that's why, because it is behaving as a basic oxide as well as acidic oxide, that's why we can call this aluminium oxide as an amphoteric. We can call it as amphoteric oxide. We can call this as amphoteric oxide, Al2O3. So the next part of the discussion here is reaction of metals with the H2O and that is acids. H2O and acids. Suppose for example, if you think that M is metal when treated with water as a liquid, it forms metal oxide plus H2 gas. This is metal oxide and this is H2 gas. So here what is happening is, take one example, number of examples you can take. Iron is a solid. When it reacts with water in the form of steam at high temperature, it reacts at high temperature. Upon high temperature it gives Fe2O3 with an evolution of hydrogen gas. That means you are converting a metal to metal oxide. So that means if you want to balance the equation, there are 3 oxygens, so take 3 over here. There are 2 irons, take 2 over here, and 6 hydrogens, so take 3 over here. This is one case. Now similarly, this is an example. Go for metals when they react with acids. If HX is an acid, this is metal. It gives Mx plus H2 gas. It's a metal salt. So what example I can take here? Take one example. We can take here, if you want to take here, copper is a metal. When it reacts with halo acid HCl, copper solid, HCl aqueous, gives rise to CuCl2 aqueous plus H2 gas. So this is metal is reacting with the halo acid and it is giving a metal salt, metal chloride. That's nothing but cupric chloride. it's nothing but cupric chloride. So balance the equation. This is one such example. Sometimes metals also reacts with oxyacids. Reaction of metals M plus oxyacid, if you take, that is HMO, this is oxyacid, we get metal nitrate. HMO3, this is, you can get metal nitrate. Example you can take here. For example, if I am taking say I am taking here you can take here, that is calcium. When it reacts with nitric acid is an oxyacid, solid, aqueous, gives calcium nitrate plus H2 gas. Calcium nitrate plus H2 gas. Balance the equation. There are 3 nitrates, so the number of hydrogens are already balanced. Number of nitrate groups are balanced. 1 calcium, 3 hydrogens. So if it is 3 hydrogens, then I think if I am going to take 6 over here, I think 6 if I am going to take, then the 6 3s are 18, then 3 3s are 9. 9 means, suppose if I am going to take 2 over here, you can take here, that is 3 nitrates, or else take 3 here. If you take 3 nitrates, then number of nitrate groups are balanced, the number of hydrogens are not balanced. So what I am going to do is, okay, take 3 by 2, the reaction is balanced. So this is oxyacid, that is nitric acid, and this is metal, and this is metal nitrate. So like this, the acids have different tendency, that is, the different acids will have different tendency to form different salts. When halo acid is reacting, we are getting metal chloride. When oxyacid is reacting, we are getting metal nitrate. Suppose if I am taking one more example, the last example if I am going to take here, this is first example. Second example, suppose magnesium is reacting with sulfuric acid, concentrated, say for example, then you get magnesium sulfate plus sulfur dioxide plus H2O. You can have different products because the acid is concentrated, oxyacid, it's an oxyacid, and this is a metal. So metal, when it is reacting with oxyacid, and here the acid is concentrated, that's why we are getting a gas and we are getting water as a liquid, and this is salt, metal sulfate we are getting. So to balance the equation, I think if I am going to take 2 over here, might be the reaction is going to get balanced, because here we have only 2 hydrogens. So suppose if I am going to take 2 over here, yes, 2 to 4 hydrogens, we have 2 sulfurs and 8 oxygens and 1 magnesium, the reaction is automatically balanced. So in this way, the acids have different acids have different tendency to react with metals to give the respective salts, and metals, whenever they react with water, they give metal oxide and they release hydrogen gas, and metals, when they are coming in contact with the water, they give metal oxide and liberate hydrogen gas. Metals, when they come in contact with acids, they give metal salts. Metals, when they come in contact with haloacids and oxyacids of acids with respect to metals, they give different types of salts. So here the next part of the discussion is, note, sodium, potassium are stored in kerosene because why they are stored in kerosene? They are stored in kerosene because they are highly reactive. And catches fire, and they catch fire quickly. Is one reason which you have to remember. Then metals like zinc, aluminium, lead and magnesium react slowly reacts slowly with air, and forms a protective layer, Similarly, if you're taking the gold and platinum, actually in D block you have zinc, cadmium and mercury, and we have copper we have, then this is 48, silver and gold. These three metals, they can be called as noble metals. So that is gold, silver and platinum. In fact, these are treated as noble metals. And of course 79 is gold, 78 is platinum. So this platinum, gold and silver, these three metals, they are considered as noble metals. They are chemically inert. They do not participate in the reaction so easily. Large amount of energy is required for them to participate in the reaction. So similarly, if you take, so that means different metals have different tendency in their reactivity. So these two metals are stored in kerosene because they are highly electropositive. Metals. That is one of the reason why we try to store them in kerosene. And these are all, zinc is amphoteric, aluminum is amphoteric, magnesium, that is lead, is amphoteric. Magnesium, of course, it is not amphoteric, but still they react very slowly in the air, and they forms a protective layer. So the next part of the discussion, reaction between metals and non-metals. Reaction between metals and non-metals. Here, metals, if you take, metals readily lose, metals have feeble number of valency electrons. So they lose electrons. Metals always have feeble number of valence electrons, so they try to lose the electrons. Example, you take sodium, for example, it has electron distribution 2, 8, 1. Number of valence electrons are only 1 electron. So this sodium is going to lose 1 electron and it forms a cation. Sodium gas, it loses 1 electron and forms a cation, and in the cation it has 2, 8, total 10 electrons are there. Similarly, if you go for non-metals, all non-metals, they have more number of valence electrons, valency electrons to acquire stability. More number of valence electrons to acquire stability. So therefore, for example, if you take chlorine, for example, it's a gas, electronic arrangement 2, 8, 7. 7 valence electrons are there, so it gains 1 electron and it forms Cl minus ion gas. Right now it has 2, 8, 8. So it has become an anion. That means always metals reacts with non-metals to form an ionic molecule. Metals reacts with non-metals to form ionic molecule. Example, sodium is a metal and chlorine is a non-metal. So if you are taking chlorine gas, non-metal, sodium gas, metal. So here electron distribution is 2, 8, 1, and here chlorine is 2, 8, 7. The metal is going to lose one electron. This one electron is transferred to the chlorine, so it forms NaCl. It forms Na plus 2 comma 8 plus Cl minus 2 comma 8 comma 8. That means it will result in the formation of an ionic molecule which is carrying opposite charges, that means this is an ionic molecule. Because it is an ionic molecule, we can go for properties of, from the ionic molecule you can go for properties of ionic compounds. If you go for properties of ionic compounds, they have high melting point, comma, boiling point. They are highly soluble in polar solvents. They are highly soluble in polar solvents. They are highly soluble in polar solvents. Insoluble in non-polar solvents. Example, you can take carbon tetrachloride is non-polar solvent, carbon disulfide is non-polar solvent, and benzene also is non-polar solvent. Chloroform also, it is non-polar solvent. Polar solvent example you can take, water is the best example, polar solvent. They are good conductors, they are good electrolytic conductors. They are good electrolytic conductors. They are good electrolytic conductors because they have between cations and anions strong electrostatic force of attraction. Operates. They have strong electrostatic force of attraction operates between cations and anions, and they are non-directional in nature. All the ionic compounds, they are non-directional. They are non-directional. They do not have any shapes. Then they are non-directional in nature. Take some examples. Few more examples you can take. Examples you can take for ionic molecules. You can take aluminium fluoride. You can take magnesium chloride. You can take. Then you can take number of examples: calcium chloride, magnesium sulfide, and so on. All these are some of the examples of ionic compounds, and these are some of the important properties of ionic compounds. So the next part of discussion is metallurgy of metals. Here let us learn some words. That is, you can take mineral, you can take ore, you can take like that is roasting, calcination, smelting. If you take availability of element naturally in a compound. Availability of element naturally in a compound is mineral. The extraction of metal profitably from mineral ore is from a mineral is ore. The extraction of metal profitably from a mineral is called ore. Roasting is nothing but heating a given mineral ore, heating ore below its melting point in the presence of oxygen. In the presence of oxygen is roasting. Calcination, heating ore below its melting point in the absence of oxygen. In the absence of oxygen, we call it as calcination. Smelting involves both calcination. Smelting involves both calcination and roasting, and requires a furnace at high temperature. That is, it may be a blast furnace, or it may be a reverberatory furnace. It may be a blast furnace or it may be a reverberatory furnace. So the next part of the discussion is extraction of metals, which is proportional to metal extraction. Metal extraction is dependent on activity of metal or reactivity of metal. So based on the activity of metals, they are classified into 3 stages. Stage 1, highly reactive metals like sodium, potassium, magnesium, aluminium, all these are highly reactive metals. Stage 2, low reactivity metals. Example, low reactivity metals, mercury, and we can take copper. Stage 3, moderately reactive metals. Example, that is zinc. Some circling zinc, circling copper, mercury, copper, sodium, potassium, magnesium, aluminium, and so on. So that means during the extraction, metal extraction, so if you go for metal extraction depends on choice of mineral ore. Metal extraction depends on choice of the mineral ore. In the choice of the mineral ore, if you take pyrites mineral ore, pyrites must and should contain sulfur. So suppose for example I am taking HGS, this is cinnabar. HGS is cinnabar which contains sulfur. Then Cu2S, copper glans, it contains sulfur. Then we can take even zinc also, ZNS, this is zinc blende, again it contains sulfur. Zinc blende, mind you, here because we are using the word pyrites, all pyrites are subjected to roasting, followed by oxide reduction. Using carbon, that is coke, as a reducing agent. So for example, if you are taking, for example, you take zinc sulfide when treated with oxygen, it is subjected to roasting. Zinc sulfide is a solid and oxygen is a gas. You get zinc oxide solid plus sulfur dioxide gas. Balance the equation, take 2 over here and take 2 over here, and we have here 4 oxygen, so take 2 over here. I think the reaction is balanced. Take this zinc oxide again, zinc oxide is treated with carbon acting as a reducing agent, which is coke. It is heated to 1100 degrees centigrade temperature and it forms zinc solid plus carbon monoxide gas. The obtained zinc, we call it as spelter. We call this zinc as spelter zinc, which we call it as the pure form of zinc. So the next part of the discussion here is metals, that is you can take low reactivity metal oxides, undergoing self reduction. Low reactivity metal oxides undergoing self reduction. If you go for self reduction, we can take first one HGS cinnabar, subjected to roasting. It is subjected to roasting at high temperature. It gives mercury oxide plus sulfur dioxide gas. Balance the equation. So take 2 over here and take 2 over here and take 2 over here and take 3 over here. This is mercury oxide. This mercury oxide in turn again reacts with the same mercuric sulfide, undergoes self reduction to give mercury plus sulfur dioxide gas. sulfur dioxide gas. So to balance the equation, take 2 over here and take 3 over here. This is called self reduction. Likewise, go for B. HGS, cinnabar, PBS. PBS is galena, mineral ore, subjected to roasting. When it is subjected to roasting, PbO plus sulfur dioxide gas, this is litharge, otherwise it is also called litharge, PbO. Balance the equation. I think the number of oxygens we need to balance, so take 2 over here, 2 over here, and we have total 4 oxygens and 2 sulfurs, so take 2 over here. So number of sulfurs are balanced, number of lead is balanced, number of oxygens 6, so take 3 over here. So take this litharge, PbO, litharge, again it is treated with PBS, undergoing self reduction to give lead plus sulfur dioxide gas. So this is the self reduction taking place in the lead, that is galena. So we have 2 oxygens, we have only 1 oxygen, so take 2 over here. Number of oxygens are balanced, sulfur is balanced, but the number of leads are not balanced, so take 3 over here. The reaction is balanced. So the next part of the discussion is, that is reduction of metal oxides with the reducing agents. So if you go for reduction of metal oxides with reducing agents, here if you go for commonly available reducing agents, we can take, choice of reducing agent is very important. Reducing agent can be carbon, that's nothing but coke powder. Then we can take carbon monoxide gas is a good reducing agent. Carbon dioxide gas also sometimes it's a good reducing agent. Hydrogen gas is also good reducing agent. Sometimes even you can take aluminium also. Aluminium solid is also a good reducing agents. These are all reducing agents. So based on these reducing agents, we can take the respective metal oxide and we can go for the reduction of the metal oxide to metal. In the reduction of metal oxides through two metals using reducing agents, take some examples. Take some examples of metal oxides to metals using reducing agents. So first example, first one, zinc oxide solid plus carbon, that is coke, acting as a reducing agent. Yes, it is converting the metal oxide, that is zinc oxide is a metal oxide, it converts to zinc solid plus carbon monoxide gas. Similarly, you can use other different reducing agents, like for example, if you take ore plus coke plus limestone, this mixture we call it as charge in 8:4:1 ratio. Here ore is Fe2O3, this is hematite, iron oxide, coke is carbon, and limestone is CaCO3. So calcium carbonate, if you take, it is subjected to calcination, it gives calcium oxide plus carbon dioxide gas, carbon dioxide gas, again carbon dioxide gas in turn with carbon acting as a reducing agent, it forms carbon monoxide gas. Take this carbon monoxide gas, which is a more powerful reducing agent. Take this Fe2O3. Fe2O3, when treated with carbon monoxide gas, it forms iron plus carbon dioxide gas. Iron, this is the molten state. Molten state, balance the equation. There are 4 oxygens, there are 2 irons, and there are 4 oxygens. So 4 oxygens means I think we can balance the equation. Suppose if I am taking 3 over here and 3 over here, then the number of oxygens and carbons are balanced. There are 2 irons here and take 2 irons here. The reaction is balanced. This is molten iron and carbon dioxide is the byproduct. And this iron which is obtained is in the pure form. This iron, initially we get this iron as pig iron. Pig iron, you get this pig iron is converted to cast iron. Cast iron, and finally cast iron is converted to wrought iron, which we call it as the purest form, which contains only 0.2% of carbon, that is 99.8% 8% of iron it contains, the wrought iron. It's the purest form of iron, and these two forms, pig iron and cast iron, these are impure irons. This is the metallurgy involved in, that is the extraction of iron from the iron oxide, that is ferric oxide, using the reducing agent, better reducing agent, carbon monoxide acting as a reducing agent, and this is metal oxide. Likewise, if you go for some more reactions, like go for the third case, suppose I am taking, you can also do one more reaction. So take same Fe2O3, now you change the reducing agent. If aluminum is acting as a reducing agent, this is metal oxide, ferric oxide, it is converted to Al2O3 plus Fe. This is also molten iron, plus large amount of energy is also released. So what is happening here is, to balance the equation, there are 2 aluminiums, there are 2 irons, and there are 2 aluminiums. The reaction is balanced, and this reaction we actually use it in terms of, this is a famous reaction which we use it for goldsmiths aluminothermic. This is Goldsmith's aluminothermic process. Goldsmith's aluminothermic process. This is Goldsmith's aluminothermic process. Here we are getting a molten iron. This molten iron is red hot, and it is used in joining of railway tracks. In the commercial purposes, it is used in joining of railway tracks. So the next part of the discussion is, during metal extraction, removal of impurities have to be done. This is very important concept. So here impurities we call it as gangue particles. Impurities are the gangue particles. These are called as gangue particles. So to remove the gangue particles, what we do is we try to add flux. So these gangue particles are added with flux flux is a neutralizing agent. So to remove impurities, add flux. Should add flux. When you add flux to the gangue particles, then you get slag. Slag is nothing but fusible mass. Slag is nothing but fusible mass. So what is happening here is, suppose this gangue can be acidic and gangue can be basic. Again, flux is acidic and flux can be basic. If it is flux, if it is basic, you can take all metal oxides like calcium oxide, you can take magnesium oxide, you can take the examples of the flux. Acidic flux, you can take P2O5, you can take SiO2, P2O5 SiO2, you can take as the acidic flux. Then so it depends on what kind of interaction we are doing. So suppose, for example, you can take in the extraction of copper, impurities are oxides of iron. So if Fe2O3 is the gangue particle, it is basic, gangue is basic here, so we should add flux which is acidic. So this is flux, gangue is basic, so flux should be acidic. So therefore you get over here, that is FeSiO3. FeSiO3, this is slag, fusible mass. Fusible mass. Sometimes if the gangue is basic, so suppose if you balance the equation, I think if I take 2 over here, 6 plus 1 7, might be you can take 6 oxygens, 2 silicons and 2 irons plus half mole of oxygen. Okay, small amount of gas is removed out. So calcium oxide is gangue particle, basic, then flux is acidic, you can take P2O5 is acidic, flux is acidic, you got here calcium phosphate as a slag, fusible mass slag. Balance the equation, take 3 over here and already balanced, 4 is 8, 3 plus 5 8, everything is balanced, so you get a fusible mass. So here the final topic here is, after understanding this concept, refining of metals. So in the refining of metals, why do we go for refining? Refining is purifying up to 100% pure metal is one point. Second is removal of tracer amount of impurities, like that is arsenic, antimony, then bismuth, tracer amount of elements, etc. Removal of this. So in refining of copper, which is obtained, what we do is we just take a vessel in which we take 2 electrodes, one anode electrode and one cathode electrode, one copper electrode, one is copper electrode and the one is another copper electrode. and we connect it to the battery. We connect it to the battery, and one is acting as anode electrode and another one is acting as cathode electrode. Cathode is given by negative sign convention, anode is given by positive sign convention, and we fill it with the copper sulfate. We fill it with dilute sulfuric acid, dilute H2SO4. We fill it with dilute H2SO4. What we are noticing here is at anode the copper ions are released. You can see that Cu2 plus ions are released at anode, and the copper metal, pure copper, is deposited at cathode, and cupric ions are released at anode. That means equal amount of weight is lost at the anode electrode and equal amount of weight is gained at the cathode electrode, finally giving us 100% of pure copper. And this is how we can go for refining of metals in particular. So the next part of the discussion here is reactivity series. Reactivity series. When you go for reactivity series, you can see that suppose metal, if you go for the reactivity series, reactivity of metal depends on the reducing power of other metal oxides or metals. Metal salts. So here for example, if we take reactivity series lithium, sodium, potassium, then you can take lead, zinc, hydrogen, then silver, iron, and so on. So this is, you can take this as reference non-metal electrode, reference non-metal electrode, and these are metal electrodes. And here what you are noticing is, that is, for example, if you take lithium, sodium, potassium, highly reactive metal electrodes. Here you can take lead and zinc in particular, moderately reactive metal electrodes. Moderately reactive metal electrodes. If you take silver and iron, least reactive metal electrodes. So we have three different types of metal electrodes: least reactive metal electrodes, moderately reactive metal electrodes, we have least reactive metal electrodes, moderately reactive metal electrodes, and highly reactive metal electrodes. So for example, if that is the case, if you make a comparison between the zinc and silver, for example, if you take reactivity between zinc and silver. So zinc solid plus silver chloride aqueous will give you zinc chloride aqueous plus silver. Silver is going to become the precipitate. Similarly, if you make a comparison between silver and iron, or if you make a comparison between that is zinc and iron, if you take zinc and iron, if you take zinc plus FeCl3, zinc solid plus FeCl3 aqueous, you can say that here it forms zinc chloride aqueous plus iron. This is greenish color. Zinc ferrichloride is greenish brown, you can say greenish brown color, and this is greenish color. So that means here zinc is able to reduce the ferrichloride to iron. Here in FeCl3 iron is plus 3 oxygen state and here iron is 0. So zinc is acting as a reducing agent. So therefore decreasing order of reactivity among metals, if you take decreasing order of reactivity among metals, if you take downward arrow represents decreasing. So you can just take here, that is lead is more, so for example lithium is more reactive than, is more better reducing agent than sodium, is more better reducing agent than lead, is more better reducing agent than zinc, is more better reducing agent than silver, and finally it is iron. So this is the decreasing order of reactivity among metals in the reactivity series. So the next part of the discussion here is, that is points to remember in metals and non-metals. Points to remember in metals and non-metals. Here if we take, that is lead and mercury are poor conductors of electricity. Silver and copper are good conductors of electricity. Silver and copper are good conductors of electricity. When mixing of metals in equimolar proportions to improve in properties like that is heat resistant, anti-corrosion, then anti-corrosion or rusting, etc. Are simply called as, alloys. Example of alloys. If we take, that is A, brass, the composition of brass is copper plus zinc, and B, bronze, copper plus tin. If you are taking brass, it is used in that is in the manufacture of, that is utensils then machinery, and so on. Then if you go for bronze, if you take statues, medals, casts and molds, both these are, that is, heat proof and anti rusting. They are long lasting. Then similarly, if you go for that is silver attacked by sulfur to form Ag2S, which is black color, which we call it as tarnishing. Call it as tarnishing. Coating of zinc over surface of iron containers, we call it as galvanizing. Similarly, if you go for that is if you are going for that is points to remember, if you add few more points to remember, what are the products obtained when you subject Al2O3 to electrolysis? Products obtained when Al2O3 is subjected to electrolysis, that is, at anode we get fluorine gas, and at cathode we get aluminum solid. So the continuation here in the points to remember here, in the extraction of metals, you can say that is all pyrite ores are roasted. Example, zinc sulfide, zinc blend. When treated with oxygen, it forms zinc oxide plus sulfur dioxide gas. Then all carbonates, carbonate ores are calcinated. Example, you can take ZnCO3. This is calamine. Upon heating, it gives zinc oxide solid plus carbon dioxide gas. So if you go to the extraction of metals, extraction of highly electropositive metals, like examples sodium, magnesium. The process is electrolysis. In the electrolysis, we can take electrolytes electrolytes. If you take sodium chloride fused or sodium chloride aqueous, that is brine solution. So here, if sodium chloride, if NaCl fused is subjected to electrolysis, it gives sodium solid at cathode electrode and chlorine gas at anode electrode. On the other hand, if you go for NaCl aqueous, when subjected to electrolysis, it gives NaOH aqueous plus H2 gas at cathode and chlorine gas at anode. So here what you can expect is, this is called a side reaction. If you go for a side reaction, NaOH aqueous plus chlorine gas, that is cold, under cold conditions it gives NaClO plus NaCl plus H2O. Here you can take 2, the reaction is balanced, sodium hypochlorite, chlorite is the product. This is in the case of cold. Again, NaOH plus chlorine gas, this is aqueous. In the hot condition, you can take NaClO3 plus NaCl plus H2O, aqueous. This is 6, this is 3, this is 5 and this is 3. Sodium chlorate is the product obtained. So under 2 different conditions, the sodium chloride which is obtained, the sodium hydroxide which is obtained at cathode during the electrolysis of aqueous brine, this sodium hydroxide in turn, there is a chance for it to come in contact with the chlorine gas. When sodium hydroxide is also called caustic soda in the form of NaOH, when it comes in contact with the chlorine. So NaOH in the cold condition, when it is coming in contact with the chlorine, the reaction takes place. Sodium hydroxide in the cold condition, dilute condition, it reacts with chlorine to give sodium hypochlorite, sodium chloride and water. Same sodium hydroxide under hot condition or concentrated, when it comes in contact with the chlorine, it gives sodium chlorate plus sodium chloride and water. So these are the 2 important side chain reactions. So the next point here which you have to remember is gold and platinum. Gold and platinum are the 2 metals which occur in free state. 2 metals which occur in free state. All ores are minerals, but all minerals need not be ores. Actually, you all know that ore is a compound from where the metals are profitably extracted, but sometimes from the minerals you cannot extract. From the minerals, extraction of metals is difficult, so we have to adopt special methods to extract the metals from the minerals. That's why we say all ores are minerals, but all minerals need not be ores. The metal oxide metal oxide when dissolved in water, it changes red litmus to blue. Red litmus to blue. What could be this metal oxide? This metal oxide could be what kind of metal oxide? So this metal oxide should be, that is, this metal oxides are basic in nature, because only the metal oxides which are basic in nature can convert the red litmus paper to blue. So example you can take, that is, if sodium oxide is a metal oxide solid dissolved in water, liquid, it gives NaOH. Aqueous, it's a base, it's an alkali, or it's a base. Bases always changes red litmus to red litmus to blue litmus color. So that means only metal oxides can change red litmus to blue litmus. Suppose if the metal oxide, if you are going with non-metal oxide, when dissolved in water, it is changing blue litmus to blue to red litmus. What oxide it could be? I can say that all non-metal oxides, they are acidic in nature. They are acidic in nature because if you take here, say you are taking chlorine, example you take Cl2O7 chlorine heptoxide, which is a non-metal oxide, it gives HClO4 perchloric acid. It changes the blue litmus to red litmus color. Blue litmus to red litmus color. It's a non-metal oxide. Perchloric acid changes to blue litmus color solution to red litmus color solution. So the next point to remember here is, that is, sodium when mixed with mercury, it forms sodium amalgam. This is sodium amalgam. It forms amalgam mixture. This is one point which you have to remember. Gold, silver and platinum, they are used in jewelry. Since these three elements are noble metals, they are less reactive under ordinary conditions. Here, if you take for example gold, originality is tested by aqua regia, by a reagent called aqua regia, that is 3 parts of HCl and 1 part of nitric acid. This is the reagent we use for testing the original gold from the fake gold. So the next point here is, that is, food containers are coated with the tin but not with zinc. Here reactivity, the reason is because reactivity of zinc is more than tin, and here tin forms Sn is nothing but tin forms a protective layer. And it prevents the food from getting oxidized. The food is oxidized, antioxidants are used. Antioxidants are added to prevent oxidation of food. In particular. So the next point to remember is, that is, go for cinnabar upon heating gives product, that is, cinnabar is HGS. HGS is cinnabar. It is treated with oxygen, solid, gas, subjected to roasting. First it forms mercuric oxide with evolution of sulfur dioxide gas. So here, to balance the equation, I think if you could take 2 over here and if you could take 2 over here, the number of sulfurs are 2. So take 2 over here and take 3 over here. These are the molar coefficients. And take this mercuric oxide. Again, in turn, it reacts with the mercuric sulfide, solid. This is also solid. Undergoes self reduction, and it gives back mercury, that is liquid, plus sulfur dioxide gas is obtained. So to balance the equation, I think if you are going to take 2 over here, I think and if you take 3 over here, I think the reaction is going to get balanced. So this is called self reduction of the cinnabar, and in the first stage it is undergoing roasting, and in the second stage it is undergoing reduction. So here the next point to be remembered here is, all ionic compounds have high melting point and boiling point. High melting point and boiling point. The reason is, that is, it is due to strong electrostatic force of attraction between two oppositely charged ions. Example, we can take here NaCl aqueous can give you 2 ions, Na plus and Cl minus ion. So if it is Cl minus ion is an anion and Na plus is a cation. So you can see the strong electrostatic force of attraction. In the ionic molecule. This is strong electrostatic force of attraction, ESFA. Electrostatic force of attraction, strong electrostatic force of attraction. Go for MgCl2. Aqueous. Yes, it gives magnesium 2 plus. It gives 2 positive charges and it gives 1 Cl minus ion. Plus, if you take, so you can see the strong electrostatic force of attraction between the one magnesium bivalent cation and two anionic chloride anions. So the strong electrostatic force of attraction operating in MgCl2 also, strong electrostatic strong electrostatic force of attraction operates. Strong electrostatic force of attraction operates between the two oppositely charged ions. That's why we can say that melting point and boiling point for ionic compounds are very high. So the last point in the points to remember, that is corrosion in copper. Corrosion in copper, if you take copper solid, it comes in contact with carbon dioxide gas plus water liquid. This is moisture. So you can see here it develops cupric carbonate. Cupric carbonate it can give, and it can evolve even hydrogen gas. This is greenish blue flakes on metal pipes. Greenish blue flakes on metal pipes. This is nothing but the corrosion which is taking place in copper. I think the reaction is also balanced because there is one carbon and one carbon, 3 oxygens. We have 3 oxygens, 2 hydrogens, and we have 2 hydrogens, 1 copper and 1 copper. Of course, this is again a solid. Going back to reactivity, if you take between sodium, potassium, rubidium and cesium. Cesium is highly electropositive. Metal. Sodium less electropositive metal relatively. And here for cesium, if you take cesium in particular, it is solubility. If you go for solubility, even if you go for solubility also, solubility, cesium hydroxide, you take cesium hydroxide and you take sodium hydroxide, you find cesium hydroxide is more soluble than sodium hydroxide because lattice energy for cesium is less lattice energy for cesium is less than that is sodium, because the reason is sodium atomic radius of sodium is less, and here the atomic radius of cesium is higher. So therefore the valence electrons which are present in the cesium can be easily lost, and very little amount of energy is enough to break the bonds between cesium and cesium hydroxide and sodium hydroxide. That is cesium hydroxide, suppose if you take very easily less energy, that is cesium ion can be formed most readily than the sodium cation. If you take NaOH, Na plus OH minus ion, so the readiness with which the Na plus ion is formed, the readiness with which the cesium ion is formed is much faster than the readiness with which the Na plus ion is formed, because here the lattice, here it is greater lattice energy, this is greater lattice energy, and this is lesser lattice energy is required,